What's up, people? My writing is the absolute worst. What's going on, everybody? TJ here, back again with another video. Today we've got another hashtag whiteboard wisdom for you, and today we're going to be talking all about rugby fitness. So before we start, let's explain what we mean by fitness, or conditioning as it can be known as. These are always going to be context specific, okay? A CrossFit athlete is the fittest athlete in the world according to the sport of CrossFit. A weightlifting athlete may not be able to run a really fast 5K, but they are conditioned to lift the most amount of weight as possible. Even a competitive eater is conditioned to eat as many hot dogs as they can in a minute, or whatever the task is for that. Conditioning is always specific. A bodybuilder is well conditioned on stage if he's got really low body fat. That has nothing to do with aerobic system or performance or anything like that. So we're always got to bear in mind that fitness and conditioning is context specific. So for this purpose, we're looking at being able to be the best rugby player you can be. In order to do that, we need to figure out what exactly makes up a game of rugby. So what stats guys have found via the use of GPS trackers and just monitoring games and stuff, they found that rugby is made up of two main activities. Number one, 3 to 5 seconds of high intensity action. So that's clearing a ruck, making a tackle, hitting a line, running through, all of those sorts of things. 3 to 5 seconds, 5 seconds is absolutely pushing it, but whatever action can be done in order to help your team out. Number two, around a minute of low intensity transition. I put transition, Cena. Hey. Hey! And hey, there's a fly here. And number two, got it. Number two, 1 minute of low intensity transition. So I coined this term transition, maybe it's been used before, I don't really know. But it's where you're getting up from a tackle, or it's where you're moving with your defensive line, or it's where you're finding the right position in attack to hit a line and carry the ball. All those sorts of things, it's done at a real low intensity, either a light jog or even a walk for the most part. If you watch a game of rugby, most of it, and that's up to 90%, is spent just walking. And nearly all of rugby can be put into one of these two actions. Rarely is it that there's a piece of action that goes on without a tackle or a ruck or a breaking play that lasts over a minute. Sometimes it does happen, and yes, that can be really tiring, but for the most part, it's just these two actions. My dog's barking. Zena! Shut up! And so to become a better rugby player, we need to make sure that we can improve at these two things. And how do we do that? Firstly, by increasing the intensity of our action. Good players aren't good because they can extend their action from 3 to 5 seconds to 10 to 20 seconds. That's not how it works. They're good players because their high intensity actions are very well done. For example, Billy Vunipola isn't great because he can keep on a charge for 10 seconds. He's good because his 3 to 5 seconds charge is fucking powerful. So we're not going to try and extend the length of this action, we're just going to increase the intensity. By the same token, we can't increase the intensity of this transition because it doesn't matter how fast you sprint to your place in the defensive line, you can't creep up offside, you can't keep sprinting, you are forced to walk or even stand still for a long period of time in the game. But what we can do is try as best we can to decrease the transition between high intensity actions. So we're not sprinting around the whole time, but we can be recovered in order to do another high intensity action in a shorter space of time. We can do lots of carries rather than longer carries, or carries and sprints to another carry. We can just recover so that our intense action is still really intense. Now there's another way to show this, and this is why these X's and lines have been drawn above here. And I have to give a shout out to Kia, the rugby strength coach, because he was the one that showed me this diagram and made me really help demonstrate to my athletes and my players how rugby is more aerobic than anaerobic. So if the X's equal action, and the lines equal transition, we can see that this is our typical rugby player. Okay, he has an action, takes time, around a minute to transition, action, etc, etc, etc. Now, our goal is not to make the X longer. Our goal is not to extend the action beyond our 3 to 5 seconds. Nor is it to allow us to do lots of consecutive actions with no transition in between. What we are trying to do is increase the frequency of our high intensity actions by having a more efficient aerobic system, recovering better, and being able to perform at our best more often. And so looking at that, we can see that doing 5 minutes of continuous training non-stop at a relatively high intensity doesn't translate to rugby. We can also see that doing lots of interval training with really little rest, like 30 on, 30 off at a real high intensity on the rowing machine, doesn't really translate to rugby. What does translate to rugby is aerobic training. Aerobic training is going to allow us to recover from our high intensity efforts quicker, perform new high intensity efforts sooner, and allow us to feel a lot more comfortable whilst we're in our transition phase, because we have a more efficient aerobic system. That means all of our conditioning for rugby is going to improve if we have a better aerobic system. Not only that, but if you're training aerobic, you can train it more often. You can get a lot more benefit from training aerobic, whereas if you're training anaerobic, you're killing yourself every day in the gym. That ends up actually pulling you down. You have to spend half your time recovering from that, whereas this aerobic training can also sometimes be considered recovery itself. Good? Cool. And then also high intensity training. Yes, I've capitalized the high because it is extremely intense. If you're spending only 10 to 30 seconds recovering from your intervals, you're not performing high enough intensity. It needs to be maximum intensity for around, no more than 10 seconds, because if it's more than 10 seconds, it's not high enough intensity, and then you're going to spend around a minute recovering. This allows you to work on your actions that you do at a high intensity, such as sprinting or hitting tackles really hard, stuff like that. It allows you to work on that whilst also improving your repeatability, how often you can do it, how quickly you can recover. And that is essentially all you need as a rugby player for your rugby conditioning program. I know a lot of people will say, well, hold on, what about something in between where we're not quite as high intensity, but we're going for a little bit longer and we're not recovering for as long? Most of that is going to be covered by your rugby training itself, and then also, as you saw by when I laid out what actually makes up a rugby game, it's actually not necessary. People make the link between, they see a tired person, they think, well, they need to get used to being tired or keep pushing through, and so they give them these interval training methods that get people tired quick, but they don't really produce the results. Whereas these two methods of training, there's a lot more scope for improvement within the sessions, and then within those sessions, you can see a good transfer onto the pitch come game day. To further emphasize this, think about the best rugby players that you know and answer the following questions. Number 1, are they constantly tired or constantly comfortable? Number 2, do they ever run for 400 meters or work for over a minute all at once? Number 3, is it the length or the intensity of their actions that make them great? And number 4, are they doing these actions more often or only once every 10 minutes? Hopefully the answers to those questions make it crystal clear what type of training you should be doing. If you want further help, I actually have a conditioning guide, over 50 different rugby conditioning sessions, mostly geared around these two types. We lay out exactly what you're supposed to do, why you're doing it. We give you regressions and progressions, and we explain every single session. That's over 50 sessions. And this guide can be given to you for free if you click on one of the links down below. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Comment below any questions or thoughts that you have on this video. Also share it with any friends that would find this beneficial. And if you want more of this sort of stuff, again, let me know in the comments below. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.